Total Recapped here. Today, we will be going through the events of the 2005 American biographical drama Cinderella Man, directed by Ron Howard. Warning, this video contains spoilers, so watch at your own risk. Now, let's get right into the movie. The film begins with a monochromatic shot of a boxer and quickly transcends to a boxing ring in which the snap boxer is knocked out by James, who is known as the Bulldog of Bergen. Outside the boxing center, James gives out autographs amidst the trumpets playing in the background, giving out the vintage jazz vibe. James and Joe discuss further development regarding his ability, distribute the night's cash, and proceed with words about family and kids. James gets home to be greeted by May, his wife and sister-in-law. He and his wife sit by the garden, enduring booze while falling into an intimate situation, seductively sexualizing the details of the game. James goes into depression in the following 4 years. May mentions the pending bills, to which James tells her about a fight that night with Abe and the stakes at hand, which $50 win or lose. They are in dire financial crisis. James gives reminiscents of the past and passes his food to Rose, his daughter, and leaves. He goes out to a factory where he applied for a job, but he runs out of luck here and returns back home. Rose tells him about Jay's theft, but she is shushed by May. James returns the stolen to the butcher. Jay tells him about Marty's situation of how his parents ran out of money in a subtle attempt to justify his theft, but James gets the gist and reminds him of theft not being an answer. James promises Jay that he'd never send him away as Jay breaks down. At Mount Vernon, Joe tells James about the strategies to get around Abe and emerge victorious. Joe finds about James's hand situation, which is not in a perfect situation, as he inclines in fear-induced anger. But James's justification about him being under a lot of debt overpowers the fear, and the duo head towards the ring. In the ring, Joe motivates James with his positive past. In the fight, there is not much action as the fighters are booed by the crowd. Abe hits James's head hard as he falls into a mild concussion, with his hand shaking, but the spirit of making ends meet keeps him going for the next round. James is losing it as he is quite exhausted. He leans onto Abe and hits him on the side of the oblique. The referee interferes and calls off the fight. The crowd boos and boos. Joe is in the back room with Mr. Johnson trying to save face for James, but only to realize that his license was revoked. James tries to change Johnson's mind but is left disappointed as he yells at Johnson's car about his hand and how he would go home without anything to show. James gets home and tells May about his decommissioning. May tells him that if he won't be able to work, they'd not have money to pay bills and put food on the table. She suggests sending the kids to her sister for a while, but James denies straight up and tells her they'll figure it out. He apologizes to her out of guilt but is consoled by a warm-hearted May while Rose is eavesdropping. There is again a big horde of people outside the factory with vacancy for 5, and this time along James has his luck. He meets Mike there. Jake hires him and asks him about his hand and implying if it'd slow down the work, but Mike covers for James. Mike and James go into a bar to take up beers as they discuss the situation all around regarding the depression. Rose and May come to a startling realization that they're past due on electricity and no amount of negotiation suffices to cut. James and May sit in candlelight discussing the way forward, only to realize they have $44.12. But even after all these exterior factors, the bond between the two is unshaken. As they sit by the table, James refuses to pray before they eat. May and the kids pick up wood from fences in order to bring warmth home in the snow season. They come home as Howard is in the bed shivering ill. May runs out of the house and breaks down. James gets home and May tells him about Howard's fever and Rose's sneezing. James takes a look at the beds to find the kids not there. May tells him that the boys are at her father's and Rose at her sister's. James snaps, but May tells her that he wasn't there to see the condition of the kids. He storms out of the house with May left by the door. James is at the bank making his last withdrawal and walks down the streets of 1933. He gets his head up at the Madison Square Ring and walks inside among a crowd of elite. He explains his situation to a fellow at the bar and tells him he is under and the kids how they were away, that he has $19 and needs $18 to pay for the bills and get the kids home. He gives out money in James's hat. James and Joe undergo an emotional downer. The kids are home and so is the electricity, but James can't seem to be in the moment. He wonders what is to come. There is a common birthday for all the kids in the community at the church where Mike is drunk. He is about to hit his wife, but James stops him. Mike charges at James, but is stopped by James's moves. Joe and James catch up, and he tells them that he has a fight for him, and the prize is $250. But the opponent is Corn Griffin, number 2 heavyweight contender. Joe tells James that it is not a favor, but an opportunity of necessity. Both joke around and they hug each other. Joe and James are at the gym as Joe provides a TED Talk. Joe thinks James is drunk and gets him food to sober up. As he has gone to pick up a spoon, James jumps into the food to be caught in the act by Lewis, who tells him about an article from 1929 July about James's boxing skills. Mike is told by his friends about James, who heard about the fight on radio. The introduction of the fighter is underway in the ring. James looks at Griffin with a smirk as the fight begins. Things get up-tempo right away as Griffin smashes James mercilessly. Joe tells James to get out of Griffin's hold and fight back. Joe gives out the tricks, and to immediate effect, James hits great hits at Griffin. He slides a little dose of sledging. Bradcock smashes Griffin's face, and the two exchange shots. Round 3 begins, and James avoids the shots and hits a hard one as Griffin goes down the novice lane. He blasts him with hits as Griffin gets knocked out. The crowd goes bonkers for James and cheers him. Joe is ecstatic in the back room, and the two discuss the game. The press storms in, and James is photographed. At the World Heavyweight Championship, where Maxie brutalizes his opponent, James looks at the game from the sidelines. He returns home in a mask of silence, radiating disappointment, only to flip a moment later and show the family the money he won. James tells May that the license wasn't reinstated, and it was only one fight. James gets back at the factory again, but this time Jake talks to him about the game and appreciates him. Mike and James catch up as Mike apologizes for the aftermath of his drunkenness. James tells May that it may be possible that he is commissioned again, and gives her $175 that he received for training. However, May isn't sure as she fears the injuries James might sustain. However, she is convinced by James. May gets to Joe and tells him that she won't allow Joe to let her husband fight. Joe invites her to tea and puts forth his belief in James and tries to get May on the same page. But his wife insists on woman-to-woman conversation to set the tone. She succeeds. Joe gets to Johnson and pitches James's reinstatement for boxing. Johnson is hard to convince, so Joe asks for a fight with Lewis as a gamble for his reinstatement. James fought his last legit fight against Lewis, after which he was decommissioned. Johnson agrees to the gamble. Joe informs James about the fight as they cheer. He explains what's at stake here is his career in the ring. Mike insinuates his possibility of getting loaded if James wins. James talks to May and leaves for the fight. Next comes in the fight where the fighters engage. Round 1 ends both fighters receive pumped-up kicks from their managers. James gets the upper hand and pins out Lewis as the crowd roars. Lewis gets up, but James takes him out. Next, cut to fight with Art Latsky. The fighters have an equal fight. Art's manager asks Art to take out James's nose. Art knocks off James's tooth guard, but he is unshaken with the smirk he dons and charges at Art with his heavy shots. James is declared winner of the game. Maxie is approached by his manager while he was among the birds, and he tells him about James's and Art's fights. Maxie shuts him off. James comes back home with flowers in his hands. Sarah is also present. She reveals that Mike has been missing for 3 days after he was fired by Jake at the factory. James takes a trip down Hooverville in search of Mike. He yells his name in the streets, damned by the silence of hysteria. Hooverville is on fire as James finds Mike and comforts him. Medics take Mike with them, but to no use, as James, Sarah, and others bury his casket in the soil, moistened out of tears. James and May are among the press at a conference. James expresses his gratitude for anything he ever had. Sporty tells May about how Maxie had killed 2 people in the round. James covers, but fear can be seen setting in her eyes. Johnson briefs James about the consequences of being in the fight and exonerated himself of mishaps, if any. Johnson shows James the killings that happened in the ring as Joe resists, but James insists on a rewatch as he embraces the terror on the faces of these fighters. Joe and James are joined by their wives for dinner as Joe reads the paper and mentions his name in the paper as Cinderella Man, owing to the robust comeback he made. Maxie enters the dining hall and the two lock eyes. Maxie gives a bottle and a wish to James. James goes up to Maxie where he threatens James to not take the fight. May throws champagne at Maxie's face after the obscenity she witnessed. Next day, James and Jay are exchanging boxing lessons as May snaps out of fear and sets out on a route for the kids and tells them no boxing in the house. James walks up to her. May tells him about her fears of him losing the fight, and the two enter an argument. She warns him she won't stand for it and tells him that he has to give up the fight at all costs. James is under the weather as the press arrives at the boxing ring. The day of the fight is upon them now. The family walks to the car among the gaze of the neighbors. James kisses May and the kids goodbye as he departs for the fight. May drops her kids at her sister's and leaves for the church to find a whole horde of people already praying for them. The father tells her the perception those people had for James's fight and how they see him fighting for them. May enters the gym as she sees James. They recollect and May gives him the go-ahead from her end. She tells him that she believes in him. James tells her to go home as they joke around. May breaks down and insists that she'd like to see James coming home, giving out the message that the ring might be the last hustle. James enters the ring to see the arena. Contrary to its normal, it goes quiet. Maxie enters the ring and the fight is all hyped up. Round 1 begins with James smashing Maxie's head as the crowd cheers. In the round 2, both of them ushering each other as the round ends on an even. However, James has a hurt rib. Round 5 begins with James ducks power punches, sending the crowd into laughter. Maxie indulges in malpractice and sledging about James's wife. Maxie is booed by the crowd, but James fights back and manages to resist. In round 7, Maxie charges with full force with the killer instinct in him, and he gets James to almost a concussion as he overpowers him. However, James manages to come back and hit the face on Maxie, and quite evidently, Maxie is seen losing it in the mind. At Alice's house, the boys try to get their mom to allow them to listen to the fight on the radio. James, defying the odds, survives round 11 and returns to the ring pumped up and gives Maxie the pain as he enters the zone and the crowd chant echoes, "Braddock, Braddock." Maxie gives James a low blow and Joe loses his cool at this, another incident of malpractice. Joe comforts James while Maxie's manager boosts the ego on him by belittling James. Final round begins. Max hits James hard, but not so later. James fights back. However, he receives the sucker punch and he hits the ropes. The crowd stood up and gasps. James sees a blurry Maxie walking on to him, coupled with visions of his last concussion, as he manages to escape the onslaught and the crowd breaks boundaries and hits the ring boundaries. James gives it to him the hard way. The fight ends with cheering all along as May breathes a sigh of relief. However, the result is delayed and Joe's suspicion over favoritism arises. After much suspense, James is declared the winner. The crowd goes gaga, the church community rejoices. May breaks down and there are cheers all around. The Cinderella Man is declared the new world heavyweight champion. That was my recap of the movie. Hope you enjoyed it. Now comment on what your favorite part was and make sure to hit the like button, leave a comment, and subscribe to our channel. Until next time, this has been Total Recapped.